Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Yolanda, as the introduction said. I'm sure most of you have seen me around church or on Zoom, but tonight you get to see how God worked in my life and how He's still working in my life. I'm going to be giving my personal testimony. Forgive me, I'm getting over a cold, so I did lose my voice earlier in the week, so my voice is kind of in and out. So I'm going to start with, let's open our Bibles up to Luke 15, and we're going to read verses 11 to 14.
Sister Yolanda, you can put some light. This is the maximum you can put because your face is
Let me
very
try.
dark.
That's as far as that,
Yes,
okay?
that is better.
Okay.
Now we can see you clearly. Yeah, thank you.
Better, more even.
Okay, so Luke 15, 11 through 15, or 14 is the parable of the lost son. So then he said, a certain man had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me. So he divided to them his livelihood. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with prodigal living. But when he had spent all, there arose a severe famine in that land, and he began to be in want. And I want you guys to think, like, not only for that verse, not only is the son, but also it also refers to. I'm gonna give a little history about myself, real quick. I grew up in.
We cannot hear you. Your mic connection has some problem. Yeah, now it is clear.
Let's see. Okay.
Yes.
So I grew up indigenous to America. I'm Native American Navajo. Most Navajos live on a reservation in Arizona, and just a little history about the reservation. It's one of the largest reservations in America. It has some beautiful land and also people, but just like any place, it still has its problems with crime, poverty, alcoholism, and drugs. Most reservations have really high suicide rates. So growing up there, it had ups and downs. As far as my family, God blessed me with both my parents, and I have 6 siblings, 1 brother and 5 sisters, or 6 sisters, 5 sisters. Thinking back, they did pray a lot, especially my mom. My mom prayed all the time because her father had taught her.
Sister Yolanda, I think somewhere your connection has some issues. It is getting cut.
Getting cut off.
Yeah. Yes, now it is getting. It is okay.
Okay. So, my grandfather on my mom's side, he taught my mom to pray, and she also taught us that as well. My dad, his father owned a Sunday church, but my dad never seemed to follow the word. I also grew up during the summers, I would say, with my grandfather, and they taught us a lot. But when I was home,
Again, it got cut. It is cracking. Is there any connection? Yes, it is cracking.
There's only one connection. I only have one connection.
Okay, now it is clear. So when you move, it is getting cracked. Okay, I think it is fine.
Okay. So growing up as kids, we stayed at home most of the time by ourselves. So we had to learn we kind of grew up real quick because we had to take working. And I actually learned hard work from her. And my dad, he was never really home. And we kind of grew up a little bit in poverty, so we didn't have a lot to eat. But what little did have, well, we made it work. My mom went to a boarding school when she was younger, so she figured that she would allow us to go to the school, so she wouldn't have to worry about us eating, and she wouldn't have to worry if we were safe or not. And funny thing is, the school was Holbrook Seventh-day Adventist Indian School, and if you recall, a few weeks ago, it was actually in our lesson study, one of the stories about the school. I was about third grade when I started in school, about 7 or 8 years old, and throughout that time frame, I was there for about 5 years. I learned about God, and I also learned that I was very shy and soft-spoken, so I didn't like talking in front of people, which was very hard for me. But I also did. I joined the choir and gymnastics to try to eliminate that. When I was about 11 years old, I got baptized, and I thought I would never leave God. I was always focused on the Bible, praying, everything. I know I was very young, but I thought that I would never leave at that time. And then when I was in high school, my first year in high school, I did transfer to a public school. And I slowly started departing from the church. And I would pray, but I wasn't devoting to going to church. And after a while, I wanted to enjoy life. I wanted to see what life had to offer. I started living prodigally, not with goods or anything like that, but just with life. And once I got done with high school, I went to college, and I discovered alcohol, parties, drugs, all of that. And the thing about all of that was the effects it had on me. I wasn't shy. I was able to talk to people. And so I started doing that almost every week to be able to talk to people. And that continued throughout my entire time I was in college. There's a couple of times I might have blacked out during when we were drinking at a party. And but somehow, by the grace of God, throughout that time, I did get my associate's degree, and every semester I was on the dean's honor list, and I'm pretty sure it was God guiding me, because the way I was drinking, I don't think I would have did it myself. I wanted to work on my next degree, but I didn't have the money, so I decided to go work, and I moved with my sister to Phoenix, Arizona, and started working for a little bit. And then my brother-in-law at the time, he convinced me to join the military. So in 2006, I joined the Navy. But during the time I was living with my sister, I didn't drink or anything like that. It wasn't until I joined the Navy, I wanted to start fitting in again, and I was so shy and wasn't able to talk to a lot of people. So I started going to the parties and drinking bars every weekend. And by this time, I wasn't even thinking about God or anything like that. I was so far. And I mean, during the day when I was at work, since I learned hard work from my mom, I was excelling at work. I was advancing. I was up for awards, all of that. It was just during the nighttime, it was all parties. I was always drinking all the time. I was always out, and I just felt so far. But the funny thing is, like, God never. I am 100% sure God never left my side. I know in Acts 17:27, he says that he is not far from one of us, each one of us. A year after I joined in 2007, I got deployed to Iraq, and I was there for about 8 months. I came back in 2008. I made it back safely. Although I made it back safely, I did suffer from PTSD, the post-traumatic stress disorder. And when I came back, I couldn't sleep, and I got angry all the time. And I was getting angry for little things that never used to get me angry. So I started turning back to alcohol to be able to sleep. And every night, it came to the point where I was drinking every night just to sleep. And I couldn't fall asleep, or I would have nightmares or all these different dreams and whatnot. Um, Once again, at this point in my life, during the day, I was excelling at work. I got selected for a great program. I made rank really quick, and I hung out with all my friends who I thought were my friends at the time. But in 2009, this was a year after I got back from Iraq, and this was me drinking all the time, going out to bars, parties. It was nonstop at that point. The end of 2009, I was out drinking with some friends, and I blacked out. I don't recall anything that happened. Um, I was I made the decision to drive, and I had hit another car on the backside of the car, and I guess I decided to continue driving. Um, and the police car was behind me, and eventually I did stop. I got arrested, and up to this day I can't recall any of it. Um, I came to when we were driving to the jail, and I asked the police officer what I did, and he had told me that I hit another vehicle. First question I did ask was if the other person was okay. He said they were okay. Um, I mean, I'm glad they were okay, but at this point, I felt like my whole life was over. Everything was just falling apart. Um, since I was in the Navy, I got charged by the Navy. I got reduction in rape, and I also had to go um, to court by the state. Um, and I was being charged with all these felonies. And at this point, I kind of remembered God, and I started praying. I was so broken, and I know it was based off of my own decisions, but I figured that God would help me out through this whole process. And each each month, they were always continuing my case, and it wasn't until 2010 that the actual court case was finalized. I went to court, and there were many people in front of me. They were going in front of the judge, and the judge was giving the maximum punishment for each person, and this was just like driving infractions. So I was so scared. I was praying the entire time I was there. Um, and I was the very last one. So the judge called me up to the stand, and I said, right before I started talking, I said a quick prayer, and I said what I needed to say. And the judge at that time, she looked at me. She was like, "Do you know what jail is for?" And I responded, "No." And she said it was for people to learn their lessons. So, and she was like, looking at you and hearing your story, it seems like you learned your lesson. So I'm going to drop all the felonies to misdemeanors. I was so grateful, because if there was felonies on my record, I believe I would have got kicked out of the Navy. So I was grateful for that. And I just said a quick thank you prayer to God once we got done with court. And I pretty much stopped drinking for almost a year, and once again, I had to transfer overseas. Once I got overseas, it was I was basically starting all over again. So I started drinking just to fit in, just to have friends, thinking that that was the only way to have friends. And it just came to the point where it was almost the same, where I was drinking almost every night I was off. And on December 25th, 2012, I drank to the point where I did black out again. I woke up and my doors were unlocked. And it just, like, it was everything was just open. And at that point, something inside of me just felt like I had to change. Something had to change. If it didn't change, I'm pretty sure I would have eventually killed myself one way or another. And I knew that I couldn't do it by myself. So from that point, I just knelt down and I started praying, and I was praying. I just kept praying and praying and praying. I was crying, I was praying, because I didn't want to live that life. I was so tired of living that life. I didn't want to keep falling into the same routine each time I left, each time I got to a new place. I had enough of it. And so once I started praying, it seemed like the urge kind of went away. The feeling was still there, but the major urge to drink wasn't there anymore. There wasn't a church where I was at, so I started watching sermons online, and English-speaking AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I started going.
We cannot hear you again. No. No. Somewhere, some connection. We cannot hear you. No. Are you using your laptop? Yes, now it is fine.
Okay. Yeah, I'm using my laptop. Okay. So I started going to Alcoholics Anonymous, and the thing about Alcoholics Anonymous is they actually focus on God, or like a higher power, and my higher power was God. So I started doing all the steps using God as my main focus. And I also started reading the Bible, praying a lot more, and watching sermons online. And pretty much the feeling eventually diminished. I really didn't have the need or the feeling to actually drink. And the funny thing was, like, I had more fun not drinking than when I was drinking. And I think the one thing that helped me a lot too was Jeremiah 29:12 and 13 was where it says, I have it written down right here. Then you can call upon me and go and pray to me, and I will listen to you, and you will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. And I knew that God had never left my side. In 2014, I transferred again, and this time I went to Hawaii, and straight off the back, I started looking for a church. I found a church, and I started going the first weekend that I was available. And I continued to go to church, pray. And then in 2017, I got rebaptized. And I was very grateful that my life had changed. And I also did give my personal testimony when I did get baptized. And I'm grateful that the Father was actually waiting for me to come home, just like in the prodigal son. He ran to meet him, and I felt that God was always waiting for me to make that one step forward to actually come home. And I know that no matter how far any of us wander, He's always going to be close by. And um, I mean, there are days now that I do struggle, but I know where to look for God, and I know that He's never going to leave my side. And if I do fall, that I can pray to Him and know that He's there. But that's pretty much my personal testimony. I mean, I have a lot more stories, but that'll probably take like all night. But thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, sister,
Amen.
for sharing your testimony. Amen. Um, uh, can I ask you a question?
What's that?
Okay. I'm not just putting you on spot, but just to ask, like, how was your conversion? What is the real experience that uh, that turned you from all of those things in your life to Christ?
It was that one night that I did drink on December 25th. I don't know what it was. It just there was something in me when I woke up that next morning, that if I continue to do what I did, like I wouldn't be here. I would have eventually killed myself. So I don't know what it was. It was just something inside me that just said I had to stop. And that's when I just started praying. And that was like the turning point. And that's when my whole life actually changed from that point on. I thought it was going to be the accident, but it really wasn't. That was like the major thing that did happen in my life. But that night that I drank on in 2012 was actually the turning point.
Thank you, thank you. Actually, kind of something similar to uh, the prophet. Okay, it's like it is not kind of a major incident or an event is not changing you, but kind of a still small voice calling you to Christ. Something unique we can learn, that it is not kind of a big incident that God may use, but it can be a still small voice that He's going to call each one of us. Okay, I want to ask another question. Like, um, how was your life in the army? That helped you? Okay, it's like kind of balance between your work in the army and your spiritual work. Okay, how are you balancing it?
How am I balancing it? Okay, so first off, even before I get up and start my day, I always pray and do Bible study, and that's even before I get up. And that is the one thing that I have to do. And I start work from there. I mean, some days it's difficult because we do have to work on weekends, unfortunately, because we do security. So during those times that I do work, and I'm really grateful for Zoom and during the pandemic for the Zoom, because through that I'm able to actually still log on and be able to listen to sermons, and and I always try my best. And in the end of the night, I always end with a prayer and also reading the Bible.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your testimony with us. It was an encouragement for each one of us, and we are sure we are, even if we are gone far off, He is still waiting, like that father who is waiting for that prodigal son. Thank you, sister, for speaking to us this evening and blessing us with your testimony. God bless you. We will have a closing song. Right after the closing song, I request Sister Yolanda to pray and close the meeting. right after this song. We will sing the closing song. Then after that, we will pray.
My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest friend, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. Oh, Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. When darkness seems to veil His face, I rest on His unchanging grace. In every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. Oh, Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. His of His covenant and blood support me in the welling flood. When all around my soul gives way, He then is all my hope and stay. Oh, Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. When He shall come with trumpet sound, oh, may I then in Him be found, clad in His righteousness alone, faultless to stand before the throne. Oh, Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand.
Sister Yolanda, can